Okay. Okay. So it was just kind of a wrap up, a repeat, I should say, on the first slide. Nothing new there. But one of the interesting things in terms of, and we'll talk about it tonight a little bit and all through this month, because we're talking a lot about the struggle with things and barriers this month. One of the real interesting things about it we can know, we know, first of all, we know everything God does or allows is for a purpose, and we know ultimately the purpose is to bring about, reconnect us to him, reconnect all of humanity, but each of us back to himself. So with that in mind, one of the interesting phenomena with when you run into a problem or a barrier or anything that's what we would consider negative in life is once you do get through it and all of that, it's not that you're, what's that expression? If it doesn't kill you, you'll grow. I forget how that goes. If it doesn't, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. If it don't kill you, it's good for you. That kind of, it's more than just that, is what I'm saying. It's like you actually have a different aspect of relationship with God that you didn't have before. So in that way, you can see, well, okay, it wasn't just a thing that had to happen. There's an actual purpose to it. It's a little bit like the idea of when you do something wrong, when you sin, and you truly understand what you did, and you repent, you do teshuva, all of that, and now you have this new aspect, this new dimension of your relationship with God that you didn't have before you sinned, that you couldn't have had unless you had sinned, which sounds totally weird at first. It's like, oh, why don't I just go on sinning then? Because I'll have new relationships with God. Well, obviously you can't play games like that, but the reality is that happens. You actually build a new bond that couldn't have happened. So that puts a whole different way of thinking on both, well, sin for one, but especially barriers and struggles and things like that we're dealing with tonight, that it's not just something we can't at all understand. There's actually aspects to it that we can understand in terms of when you're on the other side of it, you have something new that you didn't have before. So that's the positive spin on these things. So that's Gidal Fenster. If you haven't, like I said, if you don't know who he is, you should get this to move. Oh, there we go. So this is our basic calendar that we've been following. We started, as I said, we're going February through May, and we're dealing with these levels of the soul and things that are associated with them. So the levels of the soul, just to recap, are 5 in all. There's the Nefesh, which is the basic soul every human being's going around, or I should say the basic or active level of the soul, that if you're living and breathing and thinking your Nefesh is working fine, it doesn't necessarily mean much more than that, although it has the spark of God, of holiness is in there, although it's kind of diminished or covered up in the world that we live in. And there reaches a point in a lot of people's lives where we start to contemplate that there's more to life than just, 3 hots and a cot. That's the level of soul called Ruach, which is a word that's used in different contexts. But in this case, we're talking about this level of the soul. And the Ruach level, which is the one we're kind of at for the month of March, is one where we're struggling with the whole idea of spirituality and God, and is there more to life? It's not like everything just clicks. So we may take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, et cetera. Or some people bounce around from one religious tradition to another because they're searching for something. So that's the level of struggle and all of that. And then the 3rd level of the soul that comes next is the level of neshama. And neshama is kind of like, and this isn't like a one-time permanent type thing, but it's the idea is that you have gone through the struggle, you've learned a lot of things, you've grown, and you have this new connection, you've made this new connection with God. So these are the 3 levels of the soul that we primarily deal with in life, that people have full access to, if you will. And they're all very personal. They're all called within the body. They're all about us and God. And the 4th level of the soul has different dimensions to it. It's called Chaya, which means life. And Chaya has to do with beyond just us, but all of us, because there's a level, which you'll see on the next chart, where we all emanated from, everything did, but all of us. So that's with the level that we connect at. And we talked about that last week, and I will have the videos up. I'm sorry, it's been snowstorms, my latest excuse. But we talked about that level last week of connectivity between all of us, and how important unity amongst the people, especially the people of God, but humanity is such a key thing in the Tanakh, and it's in other religious traditions too. So that's the level of Chaya, which is, like I said, it's one of unity. And then there is that fifth level we don't address called Yechida, which is, and Yechida is, it's like the actual connection with God. It's like this, almost like no more you, it's just that's where you connect with God. So there's nothing really to work on. It's kind of outside of existence, actually. It is, you could say. And let's see if I can get my little, so this is where we are. We went through February, and what we're doing here is a concept called inter-inclusion. So you have these levels of the soul, and we don't just look at just the level, just like as one word, like by itself. We look at each of them within that. So if you do the Omer count during the spring after Passover, counting of the Omer, it's similar to that, where you take in the Omer count, you have the 7 different attributes, and you look at all 7, like one within the first one, second one within the first one, and so on, and you go through 7 weeks of this. Same idea here. So we look through the different levels or aspects or dimensions of the soul within each one. So the theme for February was the Nefesh, which is very basic, and it's like awareness. So that was our theme for the month. And we looked the first week at just basic awareness in awareness, which is like, hey, there's a spiritual realm. And then we looked at the aspects of struggle within awareness and so on, and connection within awareness and so on. So you can see that across the February row. So now we reach that 4th level when we're dealing with Chaya with regard to the concept of awareness. And so we're graduating, so to speak. And we're going now to a month of March, where we're going to that actual 2nd level of the soul. So the first month, we were looking at aspects all within Nefesh. Now we're going to look at all 4 aspects within Ruach. So we start with awareness within Ruach, awareness within struggle, then struggle within struggle, and so on. So each week, this is what's going on. It's called inter-inclusion. So this is our calendar, and this is where we're at, first week of March. So we're actually going, and I think Luke's talking about this a little bit later, yeah. We're actually going from the Chaya level, C-H-A-Y-A-H, the Chaya level of Nefesh, which is the end of Nefesh, and we're going, like, in a sense, back down to the first level. So we're going like from a high level to a lower level, but only in that sense. We're really going to the next whole level of Ruach. So this is our chart. This is a chart, as I mentioned, I've used this in all kinds of studies. This is the roadmap to all Torah study, meditation, and everything else. This is it in a nutshell. It's referred to in a lot of texts, but I haven't actually seen it like laid out like in a chart form anywhere. So I said, well, that would be a good thing to have. And basically, and I'll give the 20-second overview because we talk about this a little bit every week, the process of going from only God that we can't even understand, a transcendent aspect of perfect singularity. There's nothing else at all, no concept of separate existence. And then we get the story, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. And you have these levels that play out, that one emanates from the next. So first, everything starts at the beginning in a simple, basic world called existence, or Atzilut, which means nearness, as in near to the true beginning. And then out of that comes creation. And begins with the higher levels of the heavenly world, the heavenly temple, the heavenly menorah, all that stuff. And then comes the angelic world, which is called Yetzirah, the world of formation. And then it drops down to our world here, which is more or less what we would call physical existence, although obviously there's spirituality in every level. And the place we see this, this template's all through the whole Bible, everywhere. And surprising, it might surprise you where it shows up. But the place we see it really outlined well is the dream that Jacob had. He's lying down, puts his head down, he has the dream with the angels going up and down the ladder. So he's on the level of Asiyah, the lowest level, the earth physical plane. The angels are that level, the angelic world. Then he says heavens above, and above that, a concept of God he can recognize above that. but that's as far as we go. That's why we stop at the fourth level of the soul as well. So on the right side column, you see the levels of the soul that correspond exactly. So if we go to the bottom, the Nefesh is the basic soul concerned with our day-to-day matters in life. And that corresponds to the world we live in. Our word says our world, which is called the world of Asiya, which means making. Things are actually physically made. And then above that, of course, is the level of Ruach, which is all volatile and struggle. That's the light of the angels going up and down, a lot of volatility. That's the world we're not supposed to fool around with in the Torah. That's the world of like divination and those kind of practices that pull something out of that world, part true, part false. It's called the mixed world or mixed realm as well. So we don't fool around with that world. That's the world that the Egyptian magicians were at, but Moshe was one up. And then the next level of the soul, Neshama, deals with all the different separate complexities in life that we understand them at this level. It's a level of Torah study, of intellect. Going back one step, the level we're at below that, the Ruach level, is the level of emotion, and of course, physicality at the bottom. So that corresponds to Bariah, the beginning of creation. And then that level that I mentioned earlier, Chaya, which is a level of unity where our souls connect, is that beginning point of existence where everything is together as one. It's an echad, it's a composite unity, and not the perfect singularity of pre-existence, but the image of it, if you will. In fact, this is where the concept of B'Tselem Elohim, the image of God that you read in Genesis 1, we're all created in the image of God. So we all have something very much in common, the same origin, same point of origin, which is that level of Chaya, the soul level, which is the level of in the world of existence. On that side is the world of Atzilut, which means nearness, or the world of emanation, it's also called. So this is our basic chart that is behind this whole meditation practice. We're climbing up these levels. Hashem put, everything came down and through creation, existence and creation down the left column, and now we're going back up the right column, back up to the source, back up to our, so he gave us the roadmap. And one of the things we talked about before is other meditative practices are good. They have benefits. Luke and I both had previous involvement in these things, but they don't have a clear roadmap. They're pretty much, clear your mind and, see what happens kind of thing. And that can be good and relaxing and all, but Torah-based meditation is based on an actual framework. And this is it. We got a roadmap and we have a goal, which is to unite back to our creator. So it's a different type of thing. And it actually frees the imagination more than just, trying to figure out what should I be thinking about. You have a guide, if you will, or a roadmap. Okay, let's see, next slide here. Oh, I didn't read the quote, but I'm sure you have by now, right? Let's see. I put a different quote on this slide every week and show it because it's a very significant one. So we are at the second level that we're starting on the chart, which is, of course, the level of Ruach, of it's the ladder in the dream, Jacob's dream. We're dealing with the ladder now. So there's volatility, there's struggle, there's problems, and everything you can imagine going up and down a ladder. Let's see here. Here we go. So one of the things that we're going to do this month, touch on a little bit, which is interesting, because we're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with the level of emotion. We're dealing with, the idea of barriers and of, that complexities that we have to fix. When you do the Omer count, it's all about rectifying these things. And the Omer count is very much this level and the one we just exited. It's these lower 7 emanations, it's called. And so it's very similar to what we're doing here. And what's interesting is there's 2 verses in the Tanakh that are critical about how we love God, or how we connect to God, really is what it is. And then also about how we connect to our neighbors, which mirror what we're doing here. And they also function, excuse me, it also functions as like a guideline to helping us repair certain specific things that we're dealing with. So for instance, when we're talking about things such as depression, one of the things that is recommended to, and I'm not talking about clinical depression where you need medication, that's fine, I don't put down any of that. But just like you, me, and everybody else, we get pretty down some days, so different things. So But dealing with depression, one of the recommended things to do is to go out and do something for somebody else. Just go out and do some good deeds for people. It will help change your perspective and elevate you. And so we're talking about that a little bit this week, because we're starting at this level of the basic level of the soul, of Ruach level. And then next week, we're going to get into more into the emotional aspect of emotions, or the, we say the struggle aspect of struggle, and dealing with negative emotions, particularly anger for all of us. I don't know if men are more prone, but anger. And that the remedy, if you will, not the only one, but the remedy in this case is prayer for dealing with emotion. If any of you are familiar with the movie Ushpizin, hope somebody wants to get in here. Anybody, if you're familiar with the movie Ushpizin, we show it at Sukkot every year and we have discussions around it. The character of Moshe Balanya had anger issues. That was the main theme. And it was through prayer that he broke him down, and he was able to work toward to repairing that and getting himself where he needed to be. That movie gets very deep, and we talk about it at Sukkot, so I hope some of you can join us then. So prayer relates directly more to the idea of negative emotions. And then temptation, which can be all kinds of things in life. You lose your perspective, so now you're dealing more with the third level of the intellect, which is deep Torah study, really getting deeper and deeper to understanding, where your head should be at, okay? And that means different things for different people. But again, it's viewed as a kind of like a remedy. So these are all very personal to you and your feelings inside, your emotions. And so that relates to the first verse of how we love God with our heart, which is prayer. So that would be dealing with the negative emotions. Then with our soul, which is often translated as mind, because it's a very similar thing, with our mind, our intellect. So that would deal with the aspect of temptation. And then with our strength or physicality, which is going out and doing mitzvah for people. So the remedy for fixing a lot of problems at the level we're talking about is in that verse of how we love God. Because we're connecting to God, we're fixing ourselves, they're one and the same. It's by fixing ourselves that we connect to God. So it's a nice little loop there. And then the fourth level, as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about the level of Chaya, and that's the level of where we all connect together, is more based around the other commandment. And this is separate because it's not just within you and God alone. Now you're dealing with other people, which is, as I said, is very important to Hashem, loving your neighbor as yourself. And of course, this is one that Luke and I just kind of came up with in a way, because so much of what's going on, especially right now in this generation, confusion. I mean, we don't need to get into it, right? Everything out there is what is going on. And I'm 65. I've seen a lot of things, but what is going on? So, and we know, but still. So this is where you're tied into everybody. Everyone's got an opinion. You're dealing with people. It's not just you and God. It's you, them, and God. And so this is not just prayer, but meditation. We're getting closer and deeper to Hashem, but also gathering together like we're doing right now, or friends or whatever, to share, because two minds are better than one. I had some ideas for this meditation project. Luke had his ideas, but when we start talking, we talk like 4 or 5 times during the week for an hour each, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, all this crazy discussion emerges, and out of that comes these presentations. It's kind of amazing how that happens. But when you start sharing with other people who are at least somewhat on in the same wavelength, or whatever you call that, it's 1 + 1 does not equal 2 anymore. It's amazing what comes out. So anyhow, this is kind of our part of what we're doing. We do a lot of different things each week. We touch on a lot of different subjects. We try to go back and forth, meaning pull things from the past weeks into this one and set up what's coming next week and the week after. So we're trying to bring it all together like that. And as I said, this is going to connect to some other studies this summer. It's a very ambitious, crazy project, but that's the fun part. So I think here we're going to take a short pause. If anyone needs to get a drink or do anything, go ahead and do it now. I'm going to make sure I think that's my last slide here. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. Yeah, it is. Okay. So we're going to take a short pause for Luke's going to take over. This is the way we do it each week. I come in with the boring technical stuff, Luke kind of grabs that and moves it toward concept of meditation and then doing an actual meditation as a group. And that's really important. That's why we like people to come to this if they can, because there is an aspect of this of us actually coming together to learn and to do a meditation that brings things to a whole other level. So it's glad you're here, and it's good for all of us. So like I said, grab a drink now if you need to or something. We'll pause like for a minute and a half, and then Luke takes over the second half and brings everything toward that. And at the end, so we got another 20 plus minutes to go here with Luke. And at the end, what we do is turn off the recording. Well, we haven't been doing that lately, actually. But we kind of like open it up to, hey, what's anybody want to talk about? This stuff tonight or something else? And Luke and I stick around as long as we can to chat about whatever. So, so that's the game plan. That's how we do things around here. So yeah, speaking of the Omer count, that's coming up not too far out. We got Purim coming up next week in a couple days. And maybe we could talk about Purim tonight too a little bit. If anybody wants to get into some of the crazy stuff about Purim, there's a lot to talk about there with regard to why that book is so significant. Purim and Esther and Shir HaShirim, those two books, the book of Esther, book of Shir HaShirim, neither one has a direct name of God in the text. People know about Esther, but Shir HaShirim also does not use any of the normal direct names of God in the text anywhere. And there's interesting reasons behind that and how important it makes those texts. All right, I'm just yakking to fill time here in case people want to get to the fridge or let the dog out, which I'll probably have to do.
That's what I was just doing.
Oh, you snuck off, dude. All right, he's back now. Okay, so everybody should be looking at a screen here that's a pretty bright image. So I get these boring, dull old images I'm reusing, and these cool images are actually over the next 2 or 3 screens, I believe. These are all created by artificial intelligence. That's a little funny thing. AI is very messianic, by the way. This is incredible what's going on, and of all things, like right now, the timing is astounding. But so these are AI generated images over the next couple of screens. We've been doing this every week. You just type in some conceptual words and tell it to do like an abstract design or something, and boom, it puts out some of the most amazing things. So that's what we're doing. Luke, I'm going to leave it in your good hands for now, and I might go let my dog out too. But I'm listening.
All right, can everybody hear me?
I can.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So yeah, last week, first of all, hello everybody. So last week, we kind of focused on the level of Chaya and kind of reaching that higher level of interconnectedness and oneness. And so now we've gone up to this level. So what was the point of that? So we rise up in the sense of running and returning to come back and draw down this light and internalize it into a renewed sense of emunah and faith, which is the perception and the felt sense of recognition of Hashem's presence and divine providence. And so when we internalize this, when we go up to a higher level and we bring it back down and internalize it, it helps us to ascend to a higher level, because we can't correct a level that we're on. Say like the present level that we're on, we cannot correct it until we rise above it, so that we can look down and see what it is within this level that needs correction, right? And so this is why it's very important for us to practice meditation, especially within a group setting. And yeah, so we can go ahead and move to that next slide, Tovia. All right. Yeah, so this is a very important concept, and it might be one of the most important concepts, Yeshuv Hada'at. So we'll start by reading. The sole reason that people are distant from God and do not draw closer to him is that they lack Yeshuv Hada'at. which is the unified and settled present moment awareness, and failed to settle their mind. So a lot of this, is centered around Yeshuv Hadat, and a lot of you probably already experienced it, whether you know it or not. And this is just a foundational concept within Chassidut and within Torah-based meditation and Kabbalah in general. It's important to be able to settle our mind so that we can actually focus and direct it consciously. And we're not distracted by all these different desires that pop up that we're unaware of. If we can settle our mind, we can become aware of these desires and these, which are being driven, emotionally charged desires, and we don't have this awareness of, which direction they're going in until we kind of settle our minds and we're able to see through the static. So he continues and said, it is essential that a person strive to reflect on the purpose of all the desires and distractions of this world. This includes the desires which are bound up with the body, and also the non-physical desires, such as for honor. Then he will surely return to Hashem. And this is where it gets interesting. But no, depression makes it impossible to direct the mind the way one wants. It is therefore difficult for a person to attain Yeshuv Hadat. Only Simcha, joy, enables him to direct the mind as he pleases and attain Yeshuv Hadat. This is because joy is the realm of freedom, as in, for through joy you will go out, Isaiah 55. Through joy, a person becomes free and is able to go out of exile. So in a state of exile or complete ego identification and concealment, we lose our rootedness in this awareness of our higher purpose and connection. So when we do mitzvot with kavanah, with heartfelt intention, and with the intention to elevate others, for the sake of heaven, it brings simcha, which settles the mind, and we are able then to consciously direct our attention and focus wherever we choose. So he finishes and said, therefore, by binding the mind to simcha, to joy, a person's mind and da'at, their unitive knowledge and awareness, are then free, and he is not conceptually in exile. As a result, he can direct his mind as he pleases and attain Yeshuv Hadat, since his mind is free and not in exile. For exile unsettles the mind, as our sages of blessed memory taught regarding the Ammonites and Moabites. Their minds were settled because they were never exiled. As it is stated in Jeremiah 48, Moab has been at ease from his youth on and never gone into exile. Therefore, its fine flavor has remained. And I wanted to bring in one of my teachers, Rav Daniel Katz's definition of what Yeshuv Hadat really is. And he's speaking from a place of experiential knowledge. And so he says, the first stage to free ourselves from constricted consciousness, Chutz Ruach, right? Because the Egyptians, they had this labored breath and breathing because of their constricted consciousness. And this is one way to actually tell whether we're in a state of constricted consciousness or not, is because our breathing is very shallow and labored. So he says, the capacity to clear, settle, and silence the mind from thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations that build up throughout the day. The root and foundation of tefillah, of prayer, of all divine service, of all spiritual development, and is the key to unlocking our potential. So this is how essential Yeshuv Hadat is, which is the unified knowledge, awareness, settled present moment awareness, whatever you want to call it. So as we discussed last week, true joy, simcha, arises when we're less focused on ourselves. Like the example we used of being totally immersed in watching a movie or reading a book you love. When you're totally immersed in that that experience, you forget yourself, and this joy arises from this selflessness. And the same is true when we're absorbed into our connection with Hashem and with others. And this is a very important concept to grasp and to actually experience, because once we do truly experience it, we experience the joy that comes with it. And this joy is internally generated. Thinking about them and doing mitzvot, like giving tzedakah and with true kavana, it really brings us to a very high level. And the more we sense the Creator, so the more we sense the Creator closed in reality, the more we discover that the Creator is within ourselves, and we can direct our senses towards that sensation. And the more we lose ourselves, so to speak, all that remains is this tiny point where we stand as an observer, watching the revelation of the Creator from within and from without. This is why Kabbalists said that the Creator created the vessel as well as filled it with the picture of this world. And this other quote on here, it says, in accessing Emunah, faith, we abide in Yeshuv Hadat. So if we're able to access Emunah and just go straight to our superconscious source intuitively, through our preparation, training, and cultivation of our Emunah, our minds are automatically settled. We can reach that space of settled consciousness. And when we access Emunah, we're accessing the supernal awareness that surrounds everything and intuitively knows of our inherent connection with the Creator. So faith, Emunah, is actually the bonding of the soul to its divine source, its devekut. So it's the perception of the greatness of Hashem, the felt sense recognition of His presence and divine providence, faith above the intellect, the transcendent. Like the Shulchan Aruch says, when we prepare for tefillah, one should access Emunah and focus one's awareness on the greatness of Hashem, and this humbles the heart, settles, and focuses the mind. And as a reminder from last week, we talked a lot about Da'at and this concept the last few weeks, actually. And so Da'at, in this sense, is basically the knowing we attain through experience. And Emunah is the waiting with the trust or confidence and gratitude that we will know, a sense of knowing above reason and intellect. And one quote I really like is from Isaiah 26. You keep in perfect peace one whose mind is settled on you, because he trusts in you. So we see in the Tanya, he says, the essential thing, however, is the mental training to habituate one's mind and thought continuously, that it ever remain fixed in his heart and mind, that everything one sees with one eyes, the heavens and the earth, and all that there is, constitutes the outer garments of the King, the Holy One. Blessed is he. In this way, he will constantly be aware of the inwardness and vitality. This is also implicit in the word emunah, which is a term indicating training, to which a man habituates himself, like a craftsman who trains his hands. Really interesting quote. And bringing back Rebbe Nachman in Torah 7, he says, now the quintessence of faith, of emunah, and thus prayer and miracles, is only in the land of Israel. Dwell in the land and cultivate emunah. The principal elevation of the prayers is there, as in, this is the gate of heaven. So this is the foundation. This is the constant state that we can abide in. All right, we can go ahead and move to that next slide. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so when we have these negative feelings or maybe we're immersed in some kind of depression, not clinical depression. I feel like that's different. But just, it's not totally taken over, but it's just something we're dealing with in life and we can't quite figure it out. Maybe we're just anxious, we don't really know. It's just a feeling of unsurety, So these feelings are shared with Hashem, we are told suffers as well. So when we suffer, Hashem suffers. The capacity to experience the divine presence in one's life directly corresponds to the presence of simcha in a person's heart. Simcha is the acknowledgement of God's presence infused in the present. So the awareness that we stand in the presence of the living God who fills and surrounds all of creation is one of the most important realizations we can install in our operative consciousness. We want to stand in the presence without opacity. Our work is to penetrate in meditation and in action in this flow to the very heart of being truly present with God, truly present before God, excuse me. And there's a quote from Rabbi Benjamin Epstein that's really great. He says, when you're living completely in the moment, you are unfragmented, living with the full awareness and consciousness of your divinity, and the divinity that surrounds you fuses something from this world below with the world above. The broken piece of heaven has been longing for earth, and this broken piece of earth has been longing for heaven. You take these two pieces and forge them into a complete circle. If you eat after reciting a blessing, mindful of the food you're putting in your mouth and grateful for the sustenance it provides, this is Yeshuv Hada'at. There are no magic or complex spiritual devotions. Yeshuv Hada'at is simple, profound. Recognition of the here and now, awareness of the amazing union that is occurring. Two separate forces join together to become whole. This is Jewish mindfulness. This is living with the secret of creation, living with the feeling, the felt sense that this halfness does not connote deficiency. Rather, this halfness was created to fill and be filled with one's ever-present recognition that his godly soul is the other half. Every single moment, person, and place you encounter or happen to be with or find yourself in is a half form that is silver, kesef, begging for completion, longing for completion. And in the same way, that connectivity can occur with my peers, with the places in which I find myself and the times in which I am living. I can fully connect to myself at any moment and achieve ultimate unification, completion today, now. So we often get this sense that joy is like you have to be happy, you have to basically fake it until you make it. But this is not exactly what's being said here. So the presence of simcha is not just an emotion, but also the cognizance of a deep sense of purpose, equanimity, and fulfillment. Surely there are elements of joy and even, possibly some levity manifested in this attitude. But what is abundantly clear is that it is not some sort of transient state like other emotions. It's not a fleeting burst of laughter or merriment, a rush that accompanies a particular experience. It's something much, much deeper than that, and something that is much more profound and true. Life is filled with emotions and their ephemeral nature, but simcha can always be your anchor. Even if you are in the grip of so-called negative emotions, the feelings of sadness and despair, you can still feel a sense of well-being around that sadness. We diminish oneself, but with simcha. Similarly, even when you are in the waves of ecstasy, you maintain your simcha as well. We increase expansiveness and growth, all the while contained by the vessel of simcha. Therefore, the prerequisite for simcha does not require us to be giddy or happy all the time, making painful and difficult emotions taboo. That negates rather than enforces our humanity. It would be troubling and even pathological if a person broke into song on hearing news of a tragedy or illness. These emotions are also divinely inspired, with each one, regardless of association, be it positive or negative, vital for our growth, maturity, and well-being. Simcha is not about putting on a superficial, shiny, happy face on things or refusing to acknowledge the hard things in life. It's about dwelling in joy, willingly accepting the will of God and our role in a divine plan, not being happy, but having simcha, experiencing everything we encounter in life as contained within this vast vessel called simcha. It is about a steady, unremitting sense of well-being that is a place of refuge a person can always call home. Simcha becomes the receptacle for the experiences of our lives, the frame that holds them, the space they go through. The refuge of Simcha will remove a person from constricted consciousness into a redeemed state of being. So I hope that clears up a lot of misconceptions about Simcha. So like the next time you read in a text, there's a mitzvah to be joyous. And in order to attain Yeshuv Hadat, we have to access Simcha. I hope you remember this so that it's not just telling you to just fake these emotions and negate what you're feeling, because what you're feeling is from Hashem as well. And everything is important. Everything has its place and everything has its purpose. All right, we can go ahead and go to that next one. So this last slide, we're going to be going into the meditation here pretty soon. But so the Rebbe says, feeling dissatisfied with oneself for one's present situation is a good sign, for it indicates vitality and an urge to rise up and improve oneself, which is accomplished via a two-way method: withdrawal from the present state and turning to a higher level. So in this sense, we're calming our mind, we're settling our mind, so that we can focus it, and our kavanah becomes a vehicle for the devekut, for unification, connection with Hashem. And so yeah, if you want, go ahead and just find a comfortable position, and we'll start this here in just a second. But just find a place where you can keep your back straight, either laying down or in a chair or whatever, just so you won't have to constantly adjust your body and your position. And just lay your hands facing palm up. And before we start, I'll go ahead and set the intention. So we hereby bond our consciousness with the tzaddikim of the past and present, and do this mitzvah for the elevation of all Israel, for the sake of the unification of the Holy One, blessed be He, and His Shekinah, in awe and in love and in awe, to unify the name Yud-He and Vav-He by means of He who is hidden and concealed in the name of all Israel. Amen. So go ahead and close your eyes. And just kind of relax. If you have any tension in your face, go ahead and relax that. Your jaw, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your abdomen, your pelvis, your legs, and your feet. Just go ahead and relax. Connect to this inner space of awareness, the point of godliness within you. This awareness that is aware of all of this happening. This awareness is aware of your thoughts about what's happening, the emotions which your thoughts generate. and any tension in your body was generated from your emotion reaction. Let your awareness rest on your breathing and the harmonious functioning of the body. Don't try to adjust the breath or change it, just allow it to be. It'll deepen on its own. Receiving this breath and life force with the recognition of its source. This acknowledgement alone delights Hashem, who only desires to give to us for our pleasure and enjoyment. We receive all that this moment contains, with the heartfelt intention to bring him delight. We inhale the cosmic exhale of creation and accept the renewed purpose of this present moment that Hashem is breathing into existence. We exhale the cosmic inhale, and we are one with the divine animating and encircling light that continually creates and sustains creation. This breath carries our innermost desires and feelings. We should always be sure that we're harboring positive intentions for others, and this will permeate the air and elevate them. So if there's a situation that you're going through in your life, maybe something that's causing you anxiety, depression, just go ahead and bring that up. And just take a moment to recognize whatever emotions arise, or if it creates any tension in the body. Notice if there's any inner resistance. And take your hand and place it on your heart, on your chest. If you're not at peace, go ahead and forgive yourself for not being at peace. And just show yourself some compassion. Just feel it. Feel your heart opening up. With the recognition and acceptance of this also comes a degree of freedom from it. Through accessing our da'at, our awareness, this awareness from which everything is perceived and sensed, we create a still space that surrounds this feeling in a loving and tender embrace, allowing it to transmute into shalom, into wholeness. We're creating a space for transformation to happen, for Hashem's healing light and unconditional love to flow down into and elevate it. Just allow yourself to feel this fully. Just calm any inner resistance. Just allow yourself to feel it. Hashem placed this in us Hashem placed us in this situation and also placed this feeling within us. He will reveal its purpose. The Baal Shem Tov says that these come to us only in order to be elevated. And we elevate it by recognizing the spiritual essence within it. We wrap your awareness around this inner resistance or negative emotion, followed midah. Perceive through this vessel of compassion and simcha. Allow it to settle and dissolve. Know that through this recognition of the spiritual essence within this fallen midah, this emotion, we elevate it back to its source. We access our emunah, our superconscious source. We trust in Hashem. We have confidence in Him. We give Him gratitude that He will redirect and reconnect our consciousness with the higher purpose. Faith above reason. And just notice in this release of being in total resistance and identification with this midah, with this fallen emotion and desire, there arises a subtle sense of joy, ease, and lightheartedness. In any release, there is joy. Release from the identification with the content. Just let it go. Surrender it to Hashem. Allow Him to heal you. Create a space for this transformation to happen. And this can only happen if we let go of all inner resistance. And accept fully everything contained within this present moment as the will of Hashem. And we accept this with the intention to delight Him for the sake of others, for the sake of the unification of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the Shekinah, the divine presence. Just feel this release. Just notice how it affects your thoughts and your emotions and your body. Return to your breath. Take one big, deep, cleansing breath all the way in. And exhale it all the way out. Use your stomach muscles to push it out. Take one more deep breath all the way in, cleansing breath. And push it all the way out. Become aware of where you're sitting, what you might be laying on, ground under your feet, and feel the connection between you and the physical world. And we're coming back with this elevated sense. Something has happened. Something has changed. And now we learn to integrate it and use it for Hashem. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay.
Thank you, Luke. I wanted to mention, you mentioned at the beginning, what do you call the invocation there? What is the word? And at the very beginning there, and again toward the end, this idea of uniting HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, with his Shekhinah, the divine presence. So if people aren't familiar with that language so much, it shows up a lot. It's basically uniting God with his people, because the Shekhinah is the divine presence that is with the people of God, the bride, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu is the aspect of a groom, or God is what represented, like an aspect of God, a representation of God within existence. And so bringing them together, the whole bride and the groom theme of the masculine and the feminine coming back together is represents, well, it's the connection of everything, because that's where the break is. Everything else is still pretty much unified in the upper worlds. But it's also like we're going right this week into the second level of Ruach, the second level of the soul called Ruach, and having gone through the first level, and the first level is associated with us and the Shekhinah. The second level and above, especially the second level, is associated with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this uniting of this level of emotion and struggle with our worldly daily physical existence is the main aspect of connecting the bride and the groom. Above that, like I said, is still more or less in a state of connectivity. That's why the struggle is here, down here. The struggle's here on the ladder, Jacob's ladder, and trying to resolve opposites and everything else. One of the things that let me go back on the slides here a second. This slide here is interesting. I mentioned these were generated through some prompts. And one of the things I think we talked about earlier, Luke and I did, was this aspect of if we dwell on the past, we end up getting depressed. If we dwell on the future, we end up getting anxiety. That was actually the prompts I put into the program here. So you have the dark on the left of the past, and the right is this intense, scary brightness. And so it's kind of interesting that the computer analyzed it this way, but not nonetheless the aspect of being settled in the middle, of not living in the past or the future, but just in the here and now. As Luke was saying, critical to easing of the mind. I know later on he was also mentioning, we don't rehearse all this stuff, by the way. We just talk about what we're going to do, and then we meet here and kind of slaps together. I'm trying to think what you said. Talking about like not just saying, oh, ignore your emotions, just bury them or whatever, but having to deal with them. And that makes sense, but also thinking about it to what I'd mentioned earlier about how when we do resolve these things, we do get through them, it gives us that bond, that new bond with Hashem that we didn't have before. So you are, in a sense, depriving yourself and depriving God, depriving yourself of the benefit that you will gain by getting through it, the real benefit of having this new connection with God that you didn't have before. So, that's a whole other level of realizing why you shouldn't just bury these things, but deal with it, because it's good for you. It may not look like it at all, and it's easy to say this in a conversation. God forbid any of us tomorrow have bad news or something bad happens. So I understand that that's very hard to maintain that intellectual thoughts when you're in the middle of it, but still, nonetheless, it is true, and sometimes it takes us a while to remember that. But yeah, don't deprive yourself or God.
Right. That's going back to when I mentioned, we're not supposed to negate our emotions or our sense of humanity. We can experience all of this in the vessel of simcha, and we can have this awareness so that we're not totally lost in it, but we still feel it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and you said even just you always say well, talk to somebody, right? Talk to somebody about your problems.
Exactly.
But there's a whole other dimension there too. Now you're bringing them into the equation, and it literally is a blessing for them to gain something that they didn't have before with God as well. So there's always a communal, always that collective or communal aspect of these things too. We are not single cells of awareness. We're just
Yep. So did anybody have any interesting experiences or anything you want to share? Any comments or questions? Or
I felt better about my day.
Baruch Hashem.
People can please take the mic if you want, just stay one at a time, or type it in the message box. We'll look for that if you don't want to take the mic, but feel free to take the mic. There are comments, Luke, in the messages in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, even if it didn't work for you, let us know, because we can still talk about it. All right, so, okay, Tyler said, nothing was going on my way one day. One thing after another not working. My face became sour. I stubbed my toe and realized I can't control all this. Simcha washed over me and I burst into laughter. Yeah, that happens to me a lot, actually. We realized that we're really not in control of anything except for how we respond to certain situations,
Luke, did you mention, I was trying to scribble some stuff down on the side earlier. Did you equate simcha with freedom or being free or freedom at some point? And when you read something, was that the connection?
Yeah, well, anytime we experience a release from the identification with this little me in my story, then we experience that freedom of simcha.
Right. So you were reading a text, though, and I think it actually connected those terms. The reason I'm saying is you also mentioned earlier about you have to be at a level above to look down and really understand and fix things. And that's interesting because the level of freedom is associated with either Bina, Berea, or the Neshama level. That's called freedom. It's one of the terms, the 50 gates of understanding. Bina is associated with the concept of freedom. That's why they went 49. You have the 49 weeks, and then you hit Shavuot, and the Torah is what gives you freedom. That's why Moses said to Pharaoh, we all know the first part, let my people go. But the second part, no one ever says that, so that they may serve me 5 times. That's the exact quote. And the serving them, it comes to the giving of the Torah. So anyhow, I just found that interesting that joy, simcha, being above is at the same idea of like the Bina or Berea or the Neshama level being above the emotions we're trying to understand and deal with. So that's neat parallel there too. I think we have more charts to make. So yeah, I love charts. I'm a very visual person. Yeah.
I did want to ask about that too. Y'all mentioned, or are you talking about, fixing things from level above, right? Can you, do you think it's possible to experience those things before you even get to that level?
Yeah, I mean,
well, that's what we're doing here, bro, in the inter-inclusion aspect. Like we only went through the level of awareness, but we touched on every other level within that, so it gives you a little taste of it before you get to the actual level.
Yeah, so this is basically, we're going through and we're just kind of helping give over these concepts and stuff related to the levels in order to help build the vessel, for for this experience of the light. But I mean, really what we need to do is study the level above us. So like we study each level, we find where we are, and then we try to we reach an equivalence in qualities with the level above us. And this pulls us up. This is the force of Mashiach, that, you know, the correcting force that pulls us up. And through this, we're able to rise above our ego. And actually, all of our desires are given to us by Hashem. And the main thing that we really need to change is not trying to change our desires, but rather to clothe them in the proper intentions. So when we do this, it helps us rise above that identification and with the ego and our egoic desires. And we realize that, you know, if I can't use this in the proper way and for Hashem, then it falls away naturally by its own. And this is one of the things about awareness, about Da'at. If we bring it up in the light of awareness, it can dissolve. You know, it's a matter of time of just doing it repetitively over and over again. It's like something that we weren't aware of before within ourselves. Now we feel like we're getting worse because now we're aware of that thing that has always been there, but we weren't aware of, you know. Sounds kind of confusing, but it's basically just that rising above the level and looking down in order to see what needs correction within it.
You mean
I
this
hear
needs,
you.
you mean
And
this needs
kinda-
work? This means work?
Say again?
That was kind of my question though. Like the problems that we like when we're elevated a level, we
Yeah.
can see new problems.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you think that you can see problems levels above when you're stuck in a current level?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely, that's the great thing about studying Kabbalah and Chassidut, you know, like it gives us all this information in order to know what to look out for. And we can gain insights early on, so we know once we get to that level, there's certain things we're going to have to deal with and correct, you know. But
When we're
Yes.
discussing, we were discussing the other day that even the levels of learning are associated with that, our chart there. Let me go back. You have the chart on your screen here coming up. So the basic level of reading the Bible and et cetera, and learning some of the basic lessons would be at that lowest level of Nefesh. And then when you get into more like the midrashic, not the midrashic, but the Talmudic type of writings and things like that is at the next level. Then the midrashic with all the complexity is above that. But then you get to that fourth level from the bottom, you know, you're talking about the Kabbalistic understanding and Hasidut above that. And that's the ultimate. So any issues that you might be thinking of or potential problems that you might identify are still just part of existence. It's below that. I mean, the answers are all up there. So as long as we're studying, like Luke said, you know, a little bit at a time, precept on precept, we have access to the ultimate explanation for everything, if you will. So there's nothing. I mean, we might have a sense that it's something that's still beyond, or I don't remember how you expressed it, Tyler, but the answers are always, you know, accessible to us, like right now, just through constant study and practice and all. It's there's no quick fix, unlike some other paths or religious faiths. It's not a one-time thing and now you're all set and you know everything. It's like, no, we're here. If you watch the Ushpizin movie, there's the scene at the end where Moshe meets with his rabbi and his rabbi pulls him aside. It's the last time they talk. He says, you go through the world, you fight, you struggle, you understand things and you think, finally, I've done it. And he goes, no, now you get to start over. Now you get to do it again. And again, there's no rest in this world, but that's okay because it's not a negative thing, because every time you do this, you're closer, you gain that extra connection with God. So it's actually always opportunity. It just doesn't look that way because, well, that's why we have to study and we'll keep learning.
Yeah. The short answer is yes, though.
Yeah, that's long-winded Luke, keeping it short for. I wanted to mention something on this slide. I don't know if you're looking at the slide with the person that's stooped over, depressed there. Is that on your screens right now with the door?
Yeah.
It is. Semka, acknowledgement of God's presence. So going back to Purim, if there's ever an issue, not only is God's name, so to speak, not found in the text of Esther, But the Purim story is really like, where is God, right? I mean, where's God through this whole story? It's a terrible situation they're in. So if there ever was a moment when God seemingly was not very present, it's when you just found out that the decree has been passed that you're all going to die, period, and there's no help in sight. That's it, you're done. I mean, that's about as, where's God moment as there is. And yet, we see the what happens here in the story. So that's kind of like that interesting deep concept behind Purim, that God being very present in the story, although there's no way we can see it even in reading the text. It's just not there. So that's just made me think that there's a strong Purim connection to this idea of struggle and where is God and understanding, like Mordecai did. Mordecai's the Zadik there, and he makes the connection. And we're talking about, where was that? I'm trying to remember if I wrote this down. It was this this moment of where you go from not, where you come to understand that God is really there. I'm trying to see like where does that happen in the text of Esther? I think it's in that dialogue where Mordecai goes up to her and says, here's the situation, what you got to do. And if you don't do it, okay, God will find someone else, because we're all connected. But, I think there's something in that transaction there. That's my probably one of my one or two favorite verses in the entire Bible is, I think it's 4:13, if it's come upon you at this time. And if you don't do it, okay, God will find someone else, but good luck to you and your family. That's I think there's something in that moment, and I got to go back and we'll all be reading that in the next day or two, right? Go back and read Megillah and say, all right, what is happening in that transaction? Go ahead.
For a time such as this, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. There's always those significant exchanges in the Tanakh between two people that you need to focus on. It's like when I do the Matrix stuff, when Neo has a dialogue with one of these key people, pay attention to what's being said at a Torah conceptual level, because there's something always deep when there's these dialogues. So when you have these intimate discussions between people in the Tanakh, there's always something there. There's always a concept there. So there's something more to this exchange between Mordecai and Esther than, even though I've studied the daylights out of that, I feel there's still more to learn about that, especially with regard to what we're talking about here in acknowledgement of God's presence in the story. More to come. We'll talk more about that later tonight or some other night. We get, but Purim is coming right up, so. That's one of the things too, we don't understand things sometimes. So there's this thing at Purim, you've probably heard it, that is a tradition of people getting inebriated. So I want to, as long as we're talking about other things here, it relates, which is not what the verse says, by the way, in the Talmud. It doesn't say to get drunk. It says the word is actually get perfumed, meaning take on a different essence. So it's oddly translated as getting drunk by some, but that's not the point behind this, because it says there so that you understand that there's no difference between blessed be Mordecai and cursed be Haman. It's like, wait a minute, time out. How can you say there's no difference between the good guy doing all the good stuff and the bad guy doing all the bad stuff? And that is that, just like we were saying, even these Luke was saying, even these illnesses or problems are from Hashem. Well, so was Haman. Haman, the same God sent Mordecai is the same God that sent Haman for the same ultimate purpose. Now that'll make your head spin, but it kind of relates to what we're talking about here tonight too. If you catch my drift. So the point is, you want to elevate yourself spiritually, not through drunkenness, I don't believe, but spiritually elevate yourself through study, meditation, and all this stuff at a deeper level, so that you can more understand this unity of God. So like when we're looking at this chart here, that I don't know if it'll come up on your screen in a second, when we're looking at the chart we use, that level near the top there, pre-existent level, that's the perfect singularity. It's beyond anything we can even imagine as being all unified into, like if you think of the Big Bang, you know, the one point and it blows up. No, before the point, there's another deeper type of transcendent singularity we can't even comprehend, but that's our source. That's where everything emanated from, which is why the first world was called emanation. Anyhow, I'm rambling on one of my crazy. I want to hear from Sanjaya before the night's done. You look too comfortable,
I'm
Mr.
here.
Singh. Mr. Singh, we're gonna talk about Hinduism
I'm
later,
li-
maybe. We could have a wild discussion.
I'm
We
soaking it all
we-
in.
We got a few people in the room with some experience in that area, by the way. If ABC's still here, he's in India right now. Is he here? Oh, he
Oh,
left. Oh, he left. Too bad. But even Luke and I both have so they're just bringing up Hinduism because there's amazing correlations
Oh yeah.
between the concepts. And there's a tradition that Abraham's family went out there. And if you put the timing of it, like 100, 200 years after Abraham's family is out there, the Vedas, the earliest Hindu writings, appear. And the Vedas sound incredibly like Torah, Judaism, like Kabbalah. It's like, it's the same concepts. It's a totally same concepts. It's like, wow. So a little interesting history. We could some other night, perhaps, when you're prepared. We should have a comparative discussion. Not that you are Hindu, but I know some of your friends or family are, and some are mine,
Oh yeah.
Luke's and others. And I just had some great discussions with folks over the years, including the local shop owner at the corner store here. We used to have some great discussions. My favorite moment when I first got to know him is I said, all right, we're talking about spiritual stuff. And I said, well, what's with Hinduism? You get all these gods. And he looks at me, shakes his head, he puts his finger up, and he goes, there's only one God. And I'm like, okay, dumb me. I'm like, yeah, okay. He goes, yeah, those are just like, those manifestations are just, they're kind of like the manifestations we read about every day in the Bible and everything else. It's like, this character means this combination of characters represents this dynamic. I'm like, my head exploded, it's like, oh yeah, that was like 20 years ago or so. Like, I never quite got it like that. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have, it's just like every other group with Hinduism. You have like the soft, like the hard, what's the right word? Like hard monotheists, where like they believe in one God, but many attributes and so on. And then you have the I guess soft monotheists, where it's like a little bit more blurry, where they think of it as separate deities and things like that. So, but when you go back to the Vedas and stuff, it's impossible not to see clearly that that it's not the case at all.
Yeah.
It very clearly says that all of the different gods and goddesses are different masks that Atman wears.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. We have Julian in on this too. This would be a good discussion one night. We really should.
Yeah.
So here's my useless 2 cents. If you're familiar with my favorite movies, the Matrix movies, the third movie where Neo and Smith are up in the sky fighting for like 10 minutes, or like actually up in the sky flying and fighting. There's this crazy sound, this music playing, da, 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 and it's like a choir, and it's really weird. And it's from the Vedas, and it's about this like one that will come and unify everything. I'm like, I looked up the source for the lyrics and everything, and it's like, oh my gosh, they put that in there, and it's all. It's like, oh my goodness, it's a little bit this and that. Let me put it that way.
It was the guys who put that together really thought that I don't know how they did it. I don't know how you make a movie as long as it is and put all that in there and make it organized and make sense. It's just crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing. Very, very amazing feat to accomplish, to be honest.
Well,
yeah, for real.
There are some of us who believe God works in mysterious ways. So, well, there's a rabbi named Rabbi Dorian Holland, like the country, Dorian Holland. He's got a 10-part video series on the first Matrix movie. And he calls it a Trojan horse, in that the movie's so full of Torah concepts that God is hidden in there to get it out to the general public without them realizing it. I'm like, holy moly, you're implanting these ideas in people's minds. Then they might hear it again in like a forum like this or some other more religious forum, and they go, wait a minute, that sounds familiar, and all of a sudden the connections start being made. So it has a really brilliant analysis. If you put Dorian Holland, and I got the links to if you can PM me if you want to ever watch it. It's 10 short videos on concepts in the first movie. I stole some of his ideas and other people's too over the years, because I got a ton of material on the Matrix site. But anyhow, this is The other thing I wanted to mention when Luke was talking about Hakadosh Baruch Hu and Shekhinah, and I don't even remember if I did mention this part or not, but I said we're going to be linking this on the website with the Shir HaShirim study. And if Shir HaShirim is all about a man and a woman, a masculine and feminine character going back and forth. And it's clearly some type of allegory, and it's understood generally as a discussion either between God and Israel or God and the soul, you know, that we need to get back, and there's things we have to do to get back. And it was once great, but it'll be even better. But between then and, you know, now and back then and the future, there's things to do. That's why he keeps telling her, there's comments throughout the dialogue, no, you got to do this, and you were like this, I need you to be this way. And it's just real interesting that that's mirrors the Shekhinah is the feminine aspect of God, but it's also that which is within humanity, but especially people who follow God, of course. And then Hakadosh Baruch Hu, as I said, is the aspect of God as we understand and relate to God in the world and pray to, etc. That's the term, that's terminology that's used. Speaking of ABC from India, he's returning in the room here. So we're just going to change our hats and put a different one on. Spin it around. I got a little, what's that first letter in Sanskrit there? The one on all the George Harrison album covers. I forget what it's called. That's what started my discussion with that guy running the store. I showed him that. He goes, oh yeah, that's the first letter, and it stands for this hidden singularity. I'm like, no, yeah, okay.
It's like the olive before
yeah,
we
it's the Aleph of Hindi, of the, or what, yeah, whatever you call it. It's the Aleph, yeah, and the same concepts. I'm like, so we're gonna have a lot of fun merging all this stuff later this year on one website, and then you can use this AI chat bot. I think I'm gonna hook onto the site and like ask it questions to find things, and it'll pull from all these sources we have and other sources too, and create like articles for you to read. It's like gonna be weird, but I gotta try it, you know.
There is an olive on your kippah, but you gotta find the uman.
Yeah, yeah, Rabbi, knock, knock, knock of Uman, yeah. Yeah, I just wore this one for this series because I have plain ones, but that's crooked. Everything in the mirror image is backwards, as you know, so I'm always pulling things around.
You can keep it crooked.
Yeah, I'm not worried. It functions well. It's got an aluminum line. It's got a tinfoil lining
on
inside.
my
Crooked work. Look, see?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Oh, I thought you were gonna put a Yankees hat on. My daughter wears one all the time. I think she does it to antagonize me.
But yeah, like, so the meditations that we did for tonight is just a very basic, you know, it's a way to like release emotional blocks, basically, you know, and sort of like the concept of korban, you know, like an offering of the, you know, offering of the ego, you know, in a sense. But so like the last week or the last month, we've been going through deeper and deeper meditations. Like we'll start off with something pretty basic. It's basically like doing a mitzvah or something with the correct intention. Like when we did the first Tu B'Shvat, or the first week, it was Tu B'Shvat, and so we ate some fruit with the proper intention, which rectified the sin of Adam and Chava, right? Because they ate, you know, for selfish gratification, and from the tree of knowledge. You know? But in that way, we're like rectifying it. So like each time we're going through each of these weeks, we're bringing in an element of like Tu B'Shvat for the first month, and then Purim for this month, and Pesach and Lag BaOmer. But yeah, it's just it's been pretty fun though. We do this like every day all week, you know, like we talk back and forth and discuss stuff, and I don't usually have any solid ideas until we discuss things.
Yeah. There's always something that comes up every week too, weirdly. Or you opened a book the other night. You just opened the book and it's like exactly what we're talking about. The Gadal Fenster thing. It's just weird. And then of course this week's Parsha, which is about the intermediary realm that we're talking about, you know, this realm, this world of Yetzirah, the connection, and how many words connect to the name of the parsha when you look at the linguistics behind it. Also, I have another slide. There was two others. Even da'at has a root that connects to this, and another term I'm forgetting. It's like they all share this weird, you know, level of meaning to connect, to make this connection. So I don't know if you can see the screen. Did I put it up there with the little guy with the chords? Yeah. I'm assuming you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is the oldest slide. I actually have a newer one that has two more examples of keywords. The da'at is one, and I forget the other one now. What do we have? Prayer, incense, offering. Oh, I forget what it was. But anyhow, it's just interesting what's behind the wording sometimes. Yeah.
See, Family Guy.
Oh, that. Yeah, I know. Let's not play that. Yeah. Yeah, it's very.
Sorry, I couldn't help but see Peter Griffin right there. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the
That's my fault. I
meditations
just
tonight,
sent it.
did I miss the meditations tonight? This is Eric.
Oh, hi, Eric. When did you get here?
Oh, just about 10, 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, we recorded it. I'll put all the recordings up in the next couple of days. I should have time to do that.
Where are they going up?
I'm going to put them on a website. I'll post the website link in the group. And we have a group, the DevCoot group on Facebook. I'll post it on my homepage. I'll post it in our DevCoot group message. If you're
So
not in that.
the ones today were of like going through emotional blocks.
Yeah, yeah, that kind of, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me. I hope to hear that one.
I'll make it a point. I got some free time tomorrow finally. No snowstorm. That's all.
I like the picture behind you, by the way. That's an awesome scene from the movie.
Yeah, I left it up without thinking. I'm like, yeah, it works because this is the second movie, second level. She explains the program world in this scene on the park bench, how all the programs run everything. She quotes out of the Zohar and the Talmud. There's an angel that like regulates even every blade of grass, it says in those texts. And she says there's a program for every little thing. It's right out of those texts. So this is the scene where she explains the nature of the that mixed realm of the.
Yeah, and that's what you guys were talking about. Everything that you guys are talking about is basically it's all relative, and even Mordechai and Haman and perfuming yourself. That's an interesting concept.
I forget the word. I forget. Is it Litsuvne? What is it? Starts with an L. I'm blanking out on it. I got to put that. I got to put that picture up. I have a picture I put up every year.
That's what it is. Everything is relative within the Torah as well. When you can relate it to yourself and your inward self, and then being able to see everything around you and being able to
Lucas
relate it all.
Yeah,
and the Shekinah you were just mentioning as well. That's all very deep, very profound.
Yeah, and going back to Purim, it's just Purim is that was my favorite holiday with my daughter, and then my own personal favorite is Sukkot. But anyhow,
well, Purim is about coming together. It's about the Jews uniting.
Yeah,
and coming together and studying and talking. There's a multiplicity. There's a multiplying effect of everything, because you're communing with your consciousness and you're speaking of all of these concepts, and it's all about universality and relativity and
well, you see these
unity.
stages in the book of Esther, the 4 stages of the levels of the soul. You see the awareness, you see the struggle, the connection, and they all come together, unify. So you see that 4-stage process in
it's awesome how you can put that together. So, yeah, awesome.
One and although I love Purim so much, the part that bothers me a bit is that there's 2 people in the waiting room here. This is not functioning right. Oh, Luke. Well, it's only my host, right? The aspect of it that bothers me is sometimes, and I love the traditions and the fun and the mask and the food and everything. I'm not a fan of the heavy drinking, some do, but if that's the focus, it's missing the point of Purim. The point of Purim, it's considered the one of all the days, even Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Passover, all that is going away in the Olam Haba, except for Purim, will still be understood and recognized, because Purim is that level of the world to come, where everything is just one. There's no division between Haman and Mordecai. That's why you say that. It's referencing before existence. Like when the first prayer in the morning is the Modeh there's no name of God in the Modeh prayer. What? That's the same level. You're going past where you're, the level of Atzilut, back to where you don't even understand, but you're like calling out to God, the transcendent aspect of God, saying, I can't even understand what you are, but I know you're there, and I know I can. My soul originates, everything originates there. That's why you start the day with that. So it's above and beyond any problems you can conceive of. Going off on a tangent. Anyhow, anyone else have?
Are we talking about Modiani?
Yeah, the Modeh is at the level of Purim, at the level of Hasidus, at the level of Adam Kadmon, that before existence. Yeah.
Yeah, Rabbi Tzvi Freeman has a really good series if anybody wants to check it out, if you haven't already. And you're interested in going deeper into Modeh and making it a really deep experience to wake up with, because when we wake up with connecting to that higher consciousness, we carry it with us throughout the day. So it's really important to make that connection early on.
You mentioned C. Freeman, right?
Yeah, Tzvi Freeman. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get this on screen. This is Rabbi Schneerson's book that C. Freeman goes off of. And in here, Essence of Hasidus. It's basically a lecture. It's not a big book, but it brings up a whole section on Modeh and the level of that level. So this is what C is going by here. I don't know if you can see that. It's called the On the Essence of Hasidus, Rabbi Schneerson. You can probably find it on what's that website? Sells all the Jewish books, not Feldheim. I can't remember it now. The Chabad Publishing.
Something series. I forgot what it's called.
Oh, the series is the Hasidic Heritage series, but the website I'm blanking out on. It's the one that Chabad sells all their stuff through.
Okay.
I get their catalogs in the mail. I'm like, I can't remember the name now. All right, but anyhow, TM me if you're interested. Great book. Just not a big book, but it's worth 40 times this weight. You know what I mean? So. I just happen to have it here on my table next to me. It's not like I have stacks out of sight. It's just, I happen to have that one right there. So, so I'm going to stay on for a while. Anyone want to talk about anything else, Purim or any other topic? As I mentioned, next week we'll be going, we're still a whole month at this level of the ladder, as I like to call it, which is very close to the Omer count idea. Because at this level, we're dealing with 6 out of those 7 weeks, 6 out of those 7 emanations, the masculine ones they're called, they're a set. So you have this concept of persona or partsufim in like we know, like God the Father. Okay, Father, yeah, we can understand that. Or we can understand the aspect of we see the aspect of the divine bridegroom or the bride, and these personifications have all kinds of ideas related to them. And so, hold on a second. Forget where I was going with this. All right, we'll move on. I had 2 thoughts in mind and I forgot where I was going to take this one. Yeah, that happens. Luke knows that. Yeah.
Yep.
They say you can't think of 2 things at once exactly. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if anybody wants to take the mic and discuss maybe experience they had in the meditation itself or any thoughts about it, you can go ahead and do that.
I had a weird struggle, I guess.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
A physical one, there was a point where you asked us to stick our hands on our chest, and I'm wearing the petik around my neck. So instead of getting my physical heart, I'm sticking my hand on top of the petik.
Oh. Yeah, it's still making that connection. You're good.
Yeah. You're good.
Just thought that was
quantum physics. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Non-locality. Yeah. So I basically did that meditation as like an intro to what we're going to be doing, which is exploring releasing emotional blocks. And when we really learn to have that awareness, to also, to cultivate the amuna, and which is basically, it's all connected to our da'at. So da'at is the awareness, the essential self, that's mute, and so through this da'at, this awareness, this unitive knowledge, experiential knowledge, whatever you want to call it, it basically surrounds, it's basically like the flip side of Keter. So Keter is the crown, the superconscious source, and it is it's internal, where the da'at is the externalized Keter, basically, like flip side of the coin. And so whenever something arises in our awareness, the da'at surrounds it in the same way that Keter surrounds, everything in creation. And so within this, we can connect our da'at, whatever we hold in our da'at and our awareness, to its superconscious source in order for it to be elevated. And we can kind of penetrate into that that emotional block or whatever it is that's emanating from the situation we're in, which Hashem put us in. And he also gives us the feeling, like I said earlier. And so like when we can do this, just recognize, like it comes from the verse in Sefer Yetzirah that says, make each thing stand on its essence and the creator sit on his base. So this is talking about how we're, through recognizing, through studying the Sefirot and the worlds, we can learn to recognize and use the Sefirot to probe into certain areas of our lives, our thoughts, our desires, and recognize within it the spiritual spark, its source, in order for that thing to be elevated and return to its source. So it's a really, really interesting concept. And once we actually get a grasp on it and start to feel it, and sense it, we have that felt sense of recognition and perception. It becomes a real thing for us. It's like no longer something that's theory or something we're just thinking about. It's like it's part of our experience now, and that's part of what da'at is. It's bringing together the initial insight of something with its analysis, and then bringing it down into a unified felt sense of understanding and experience.
So the other day, Luke, if you recall, when you read that verse from Sefer Yetzirah just there.
Yeah.
We got off on like a 30-minute tangent. So can you read that one sentence about the base and all real quick? Because I'm going to pull up a screen, and I think a couple people might get a kick out of what I'm going to show them here.
Yeah.
You lost your audio there. You lost your audio.
Better?
Go ahead again. I think you're about to get better.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's better. So there was an interesting verse from Sefer Yetzirah there. Yeah.
Okay, hang on just a second. I got it.
Sounded like you had it memorized.
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting part of the comment. So like, let's see. All right, so it's coming from Sefer Yetzirah.
Yeah, watch it. Fix your mic again. You're off a bit.
Okay. Let's see.
You were good, and then it got garbly.
How about that?
I'm not sure. It sounded okay, then it got weird at the end.
I think it's its connection speed.
Well, he lives in the middle of a swamp.
Yeah.
He's floating on a raft with a shack in the middle of a swamp, and it's. I have to give him a hard time.
Well, in the meantime, I have my experience from the meditation to share.
Oh, please. Hi there, by the way. Hello, nice to see you.
Oh, here, I'll turn my video on. Yeah, shalom. I was reading from Sha'arei Orach, The Gates of Light, just prior to this meditation starting. And there's this section that details you need to know which room to go into.
Yeah.
And where it's located if you want the abundance to come down to you. And this for me is another basis for the meditations, because you need to know where you're coming from, where you're at, and where you're going.
Right.
Your emotional state, in other words. Luke was talking about Da'at. You have to keep in mind Hokmah and Binah, the hard spark of Hokmah, that initial like lightning bolt that goes off in your mind, whether it's your physical intellect or the spark of divine emanation or divine inspiration, which moves to Binah, which is, it gives birth through the emotive Sephirot. And I've been in situations like that many times in my relationship with my wife, maritally speaking, because sometimes things happen in a marriage that sparks your emotions, and you need to identify the source, where it's coming from, its emanation, its hard point. So it can be a hard point, it could be a soft point. So for me, throughout this meditation, before going into it, I wanted to identify certain things before going in. And because I did this, I was completely at peace going in.
Oh, nice.
Similar to Rabbi Akiva in Chagiga 14. He went into Pardes in peace and he came out in peace, whereas the other three rabbis had an issue.
Yeah.
Which resulted
in
either their destruction or going
bit.
insane or like crazy,
Well,
Meshuggah.
funny,
It's like,
so two things. Funny you mentioned the four rabbis and all that. But that's, we want to do Luke and I were talking about doing a room about that one night. And then just the concept of, you said like where the initial spark. So I did a whole thing, it's on another website that about like the whole process of an idea. And I kind of borrowed this from a text. I just trying to think. So you get the idea, let's say, for example, just all of a sudden you sit there and like, you know what, I want to build my own house. That's the first thing. There's no definition to it. It's very singular, but everything is going to come out of that point. And that's the level of Atzilut. And then you start thinking, 3 bedrooms, a nice driveway goes around, a pool here. You start breaking it down into all the different pieces. That's the next level of Bria of creation. But now you got to start bringing it down through down the ladder. And that's where you say, okay, well, let's get it on a blueprint on paper and really design it and bring it all the way down till we're ready to build. And then the 4th lowest level of physicality is where you actually build the house. Because the question is, going back, that thing that popped in your head, where was it before then? Don't know. That's the world of pre-existence. It's out there.
well, see,
it's
that's
floating
the
out there,
reason
and you
why
did this.
I
Went up there and you
differentiate
reached,
between
pulled it
the
down,
physical intellect, the yesh, and the atzmus. I always differentiate between those two because it's very important to identify which is which, and which one is in the emotive or the effectual mode rather than the other one, because one can cancel out the other if you're not paying close enough attention. So for me during the meditation, I had to come to a point where I had to surrender my own physical intellect to allow this spark to come in and then make a rectification. And then once that happened, I was able to move past it and then to be at an even deeper peace, a more sublime peace, and because, things happen in the physical and it's going to touch your emotions. It always does. We can't escape it. And so I've learned that my reaction has to be guarded, especially if I want to continue to refine my Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, because I was reading a little bit from Sha'ar Hagil Galim on this, and on the 5 levels of the soul is that the one thing we always need to come away with is that, however, know that the person himself is the spiritual element within the body. The spiritual element manifests itself in a physical way, which is why you have a lot of what people are ailing from, physically or emotionally, psychologically. All this stuff is part of the equation. But just that one statement alone, there's just a lot to unpack. So, but like I said, I went into it in peace, and I came out in peace. Like wholeness, a completeness, and I just wanted to share that.
Well, appreciate that, and we're hoping more people join. So bring your friends if you have Facebook friends, just so we can develop this. This is only our 5th night. We're doing at least 16 of these because we're 4 weeks times 4 things. So that's I know Luke Luke texted me knock knock. I'm like, was he making a Matrix joke? And I realized no, he was trying to get back in the group. It took me a second. I'm a little slow at times, but I will catch on. So he's back. So I know you were gonna try to get your mic fixed and read that thing from Sefer Yetzirah because hold on, I just want a couple people. If folks don't mind, I'm just hitting you, muting background noises on. I got my own with a cat behind me. All right. So the verse, do you have that verse handy?
Yeah, I got it. So
all right, just the one about the day.
Right. So Sefer Yetzirah 1:4. So it says, make each thing stand on its essence. So in the commentary here, Rabbi Ari Kaplan says, in this manner, one can learn how to perceive the essential nature of each thing. The Sefer Yetzirah says, make each thing stand on its essence, so as to parallel the next phrase, make the creator sit on his essence. The Sefer Yetzirah is also indicating here that when a person perceives the true spiritual nature of a thing, he also elevates that thing spiritually. Standing refers to such elevation. The expression, make each thing stand, therefore says when one probes from them, he elevates the things that he probes. So that's basically the concept that we went through in the meditation itself. We're going through and we're using this consciousness to surround each aspect and elevate it through recognizing the spiritual nature and essence within.
Okay, right. So as we were talking the other night, I'm going to put the screen up just to freak people out a little bit here. Hold on here. Here we go. So this is the screen coming up now is from my matrix study. And it's based, the diagram you're seeing is a little different than the diagram of the worlds of existence, but it's similar too. There's a relationship. So the whole idea in the first few movies is the masculine aspect, or Neo, if you will, has to elevate these things back to the essence, like you call it, back to the source, to get the true deep understanding of things, which, by the way, the end of the 3rd movie is Purim, because he realizes there's no difference between Smith and him or anything else, and he lets Smith become the agent of light, ironically. He realizes Smith's not the enemy. It's all part of one plan. That's the end of the 3rd movie. So Neo, at the end of that 3rd movie, reached that higher level of elevating everything, like you said. So the light of truth shone on everything. And then in the 4th movie now comes back down the other way, where you see this elevation of the feminine aspect of Trinity at the end, which is coming back from the other direction. And this is all under the guise of Purim, because Keter, the crown, only appears 3 times in the Tanakh. It's all in the book of Esther, and it's always in the phrase Keter Malkut, together. Like, what is that about? I think the quote's on this page. Hold on a second. Right above here. Yeah, okay, here it is. The quote here by Sarah Schneider. The word Keter, crown, only appears 3 times in the Tanakh, and all 3 are in the book of Esther, and always in the phrase Keter Malkut, which hints at a powerful Kabbalistic practice called Yehud, unification. So understanding everything is really ultimately from one source. Even the things we look at as our struggles, tribulations, and trials and all that, they're all ultimately serving the purpose of bringing everything back to the singularity. Back to the source was the tagline for the 4th movie too, by the way. So it's just interesting that the cycle of, elevating it to the truth and then bringing it back down is what's happening in these movies, and the way they broke it up. So little matrix tidbit for the night, if this makes any sense.
Yes, it does, and it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, it reminded me of what you said about in the quote from Sefer Yetzirah, which, you know, I did say one sentence and you read half the book there, but that's okay.
Yeah, so like the
Oh no, he's going back to it again. You said the
second,
base. You said, and he brings back down to the base. So the top, right? The creator
Yeah.
comes back down to the base. It says, right, back down to the.
Yeah.
So it pictures a circle, a cycle, closed circuit, whatever you want to call it. You know, which is what happened in here. Yeah. So we elevate it, and then it brings back the creator stands on the base, Malkut. It says in the text, right?
yeah, so like the sum of it is, make the creator sit on his base, and then he says to
There you
sum
go.
everything up. We're talking about the awakening from below, which motivates an awakening from above.
Yeah.
Thus, when a person mentally elevates each thing to its spiritual essence, he also brings spiritual sustenance, shefa, down to the particular object. This sustenance can then be channeled and used by the individual. Under some conditions, this can be used to actually bring about physical changes in the world. So I thought that was really cool. It reminds me of the Magid of Mesrit talking about we have to rise up to the level of basically nothingness of ayin in order to come back down and actually make changes in our thinking patterns, in our emotions, in our actions, and also within a situation.
Yep. As bingo, as the oracle said, bingo. Exactly. Yeah. But it's funny how this presents itself in Shir HaShirim, it presents itself in the Matrix movies, it presents itself in this meditation study, Sefer Yetzirah. It's always about, taking this stuff and bringing it up to where it belongs and changes it, which then that's the arousal from below, so to speak, or it's connected to it. And it brings Hashem, the arousal from above, back down, and which brings like the final rectification and the Olam Haba and all that good stuff. So it's on a cosmic level, but it's also on a deep personal level within each one of us that we have to do this. So everything in the microcosm in the person is the same as what's going on in through the universes.
Right. And like a really simple meditation that you can carry with you throughout the day is just remembering the verse in Isaiah, the whole earth is filled with the presence of him or his glory.
Right.
So when we get that with us and bring it back up, we can train ourselves, like it was talking about the concept of Emunah is actually cultivating this perception and sense. So we train ourselves to recognize the spiritual spark within all the physical thing through this. The entire world is filled with the earth is filled with his glory, his presence. We can start to recognize that and just move into a deeper space gradually, as we bring it up more and more each day. And eventually it becomes a living experience that you're going through. You recognize the spiritual within everything to the point to where it creates this unity, and you don't feel like you start with one object and practicing, but eventually you move to all kinds of things, and you get down to Torah study, and you start doing this when you start doing Torah study, it's a game changer. And like Rebbe Nachman says, one of the best things you can do is turn Torah study into tefillah or hitbodedut into a meditation.
Well, that's part of the goal with connecting this to Shir HaShirim of what we're going to do is, integrate all this meditative stuff into the understanding of the text itself and vice versa, when one will elevate the other. And as you can see on the screen in front of you, this is the diagram I've been using, goes back a number of years. I was using it in the Matrix thing here to show the parallels in the story. But it's interesting because you talked earlier about this whole process and how it relates to Mashiach, right? The Mashiach is this connecting aspect, and that's why when everything comes together, it's equivalent to the arrival of Mashiach and the unification of the name. And was it Zechariah 14:9 or something like that? That's all. So in the Matrix story, there's a line. She says, "The power of the one goes all the way back to the source, to pre-existence." And Sharei Ora, your text that was quoted earlier, mentions the Vav. It's, I forget what chapter, it talks about the Vav connecting all the way back to Ein Sof, to pre-existence, the letter Vav, which is really interesting. And that brings everything through all the worlds below, because the Vav penetrates even down into the last Hey, the Malkut, which
Right.
is how that text I held up earlier from Rabbi Schneerson, that book,
Mhm.
makes the point that Hasidus is not like the other levels of understanding Kabbalah and you know, the Pardes, right, Bishat, Remez, Drash, Sud, which is Kabbalah. It's not like those. It encompasses everything, like you said earlier, how I forget what you were reading, Luke, but how it encompasses everything, but it also permeates everything. It does both.
Yeah, the Keter dot thing.
Yeah, exactly. It does both. It's both the encompassing shell. I'll use the Russian doll thing. I forget what those dolls are called, where the nested one in the other.
Oh yeah,
Encompass the
nesting
big
dolls, yeah.
doll. It encompasses everything, but also permeates as well at every level. It brings a different insight. It brings that total insight to every level of the 4 levels of pardes of understanding the Bible, the Torah. So yeah, anyway, all fun stuff here. Some of these discussions are really probably meant better for another night separately, these Kabbalistic Hasidic things. But still, you know, touch on it a bit now. But I think when we bring this and Shir HaShirim together, so this is another example of how weird synchronicities. When I started the Shir HaShirim study a few months ago, and then I postponed it to do some other things and this too, and we'll go back to it. But the day I launched it, I'm sitting there about 2-3 hours before I'm ready to go on Zoom for the very first night. I'm like, we could share HaShirim. Something told me for years I've wanted to do it. Literally 5 years I've wanted to do something, but something kept getting in the way. I'm like, finally, it's time. Share HaShirim is here. I know I got all this stuff ready. And about 3 hours before I go on Zoom, one of these little things shows up in my Facebook feed from Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg, and he says, it is imperative that we teach the whole world all the secrets of Shir HaShirim. I'm like 3 hours before I go start that, I'm like, okay, that is weird, you know, really weird, because it's a very bizarre text. Why is that even in the Bible? It doesn't seem to have any history, any real moral lessons. It's like, you know, commandments. It's like, what's the point of that book? But that's it. It's like Purim. It's like Esther. There's something really deep there. And I think when we connect, I know when we connect these things we're discussing over the next 2 months, 3 months, it's going to, I think it's gonna be a very unique study of the text. And it's gonna be very powerful. Yeah. That's my gut feeling and I'm sticking with it.
Hey, Shlomo, I checked Telegram, but I didn't find, did you send me something?
Yeah.
What's your name on there, and I can just go straight to it.
Rick White, 42.
Okay. Rick White 42.
He's got a 42 in his name.
Okay, is it all? It's all in Hebrew, right?
Yeah.
So okay, Shlomo. Yeah. Okay, I see. Okay.
All right. Anyone else have anything they want to talk about? It can be about tonight's meditation or the series in general or anything else to, you know, I've got a few minutes here. A few minutes. I did a lot of snow blowing and shoveling today, so I've still got some mental energy left, but not a lot of physical energy. Lily says hi. Lily named it by the other Lily, who's really a rose, who's a Shoshana, named her Lily, which is funny. It's all good.
All right, I sent you a message, Shlomo.
All right. Let's see, where are we? Who is here right now? Curtain Smith. Oh, we still have a few people here. That's cool. So yeah, folks, we're gonna resume 9:30 again on Saturday through the month of March. We're staying at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. I don't know yet. I think we may bump it a half hour every month to accommodate for the sundown change and daylight savings, which is coming up really quick. But do invite other people to come check this out. We do like a mini, I try to do a little mini review of stuff every week as a catch up. But once we start putting stuff, like this is a long-term project. This is, like I said, this first 4 months is just these Zoom rooms and some commentary in the group. But I'm thinking this is going to be a major, major project connecting to all the other things going forward. So yeah, it's all about making connections. The whole, it's funny, the image on the screen at the top, this is from an article I wrote on this concept called unification of feminine and masculine. So if you go back to the unity of Adam in chapter 1 of Genesis, it's a single being that is both masculine and feminine. Oh, bye, Mary. And so if we're all going backwards and back to that direction, then there's this concept of unifying that comes back, and the temporary state of the diminishment of the feminine when Eve, Hava, is told, you'll be subservient, is the Shekhinah in exile, represents that the feminine is separated now, but that's going to return, and not only return, but all the Kabbalistic and Hasidic texts say that the feminine actually goes above the masculine, which was amazing that this shot in from the movie that I got on the screen was at the very end when Trinity actually is holding Neo up, which was like unbelievable. They threw that in there too. That's very symbolic of what's going on here. And again, this isn't gender boy girl thing. This is concepts, So Ein Sof gives, it gives birth. The first action is something coming out of it, like giving birth, like the feminine aspect. So anyhow, that'll be fun to talk about one night. Yeah. Take care, Eric. What do we got? 11:40. I got something beeping behind me, I think. I don't know why I set an alarm on the stove, but it's reminding me of something. Oh, I know what it is.
Supposed to do that thing.
Yeah, that thing I had to do. People used to tie a string around their finger, and they'd look at it and go, what was that for? Yeah. Yeah, or you always put something back in a special place that I'll know it because I'm putting it there, and then later you're like, where did I put it? Why did I do here? Yeah. So, but I know what it is. There's something on the stove I have to put in the fridge. That's all that means. So, yeah.
So yeah, next week we'll be going into Ruach, right?
Struggle within struggle. That's intense when you double up. It's like when we do the Omer count and it's Gevurah or something like that. It's really the intense meaning of the thing. So yeah, struggle within struggle. I don't know, Luke, what are we going to talk about? I have no idea yet. This is our struggle. This is our struggle. What are we going to talk about? I don't know.
Yeah, so like the focus this time was on basically getting through that klipa of depression, and I'm thinking the second time we can actually, I think you have anger listed, don't you? For
I think on that 4 I put negative emotions like anger as the chief example, because that's probably the one that is most associated with, I hate to say it, but like idolatry, in that why would you be angry if it's all part of God's plan? You know better, you're God now, and not to be sarcastic, but that's really what it comes down to. But we're human, we have emotions, and Hashem understands, but this is why we need to recognize it and work on it. And so anger, it was obviously the main theme in the Ushpizin movie. That was this one unrectified thing, and the main character there. I'm anxious to do that again this year. When is Sukkot this year? Is it late or early October? Or does anyone know? Because I don't know how cold it's going to be in the Sukkah. We're going to be out there doing this. Get up later. I think it's later this year. I don't know why. I like it when it's like October 1, or it's still warm out. Well, here in New England, we have 4 seasons. It's not all summer and wicked summer like in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's hell out here.
Yeah.
Back outside into hell.
The flames of Mississippi.
Yeah,
Wait, there was a movie called Mississippi Burning, wasn't there? Yeah.
yeah.
Something. Different topic, but yeah. Okay.
Looks like Sukkoth's the first week in October.
Oh, it is?
September, it actually begins September 29th.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
wow.
We might not freeze. The Wi-Fi might work, yeah. No, my
wonder
daughter
if
showed
everything
me how to do the hotspot, so I'm not worried about the Wi-Fi.
I wonder if every other holy day is actually at the first of the month, because so far,
Yeah.
these-
Where's Shavuot? That's not. No, Shavuot would be 16 days after Lag BaOmer, 17 days after Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is
Okay,
so
yeah.
Shavuot would be about the third week of the month,
Right.
right? Okay, well, can't win them all. We'll do a Shavuot. We'll do some Omer count. Well, I hope to do Omer count once a week for the main theme for the week. You know, like I think my current plan is to do it the week before Passover, so that we can, be talking about what's coming. I think it's gonna be the night before Passover. We're gonna have the Zoom room. I did post something somewhere. So that's the plan at the moment. And we'll keep doing this room on Saturday nights. That'll be on a Tuesday night. And because Passover starts on a Wednesday night, if I recall correctly. And yeah, so we'll do Omer count. We'll overlap with this for a bit. And then once this ends, then we may or may not start Shir HaShirim right away. We might need a little time maybe to organize and do some of our cleanup work with this and put it on the website, I'm going to start putting stuff on the
Is on
website.
the 26th of May.
26.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a lot to look forward to. Hopefully we can just keep building these projects and Zoom rooms and community of people that are interested in this stuff, because it's as we say in New England, it's wicked important. Wicked important to learn this stuff right now. Yeah, it really is.
Like we're conducting an experiment basically, because there hasn't been anyone who's really gone through each of the soul levels in a meditation in an organized way, really.
I
So
haven't found this. No, I haven't. That's another reason. Yeah, we talked about that. It's like I haven't found exactly this. And I'm like, geez, of all things, this is what a great outline, right? We had an instant outline.
And so it's interesting that we're all basically like the lab, and we're all forming an experiment together. And,
That's where I recommend
pretty-
reading Sha'ar HaGilgalim.
Oh yeah.
That's
That's
essential
very cool.
reading if you're going to get into the rectification.
Yeah.
Because
Guni.
as part of the unification of all the four worlds of this
Mhm.
Atzilut, Bariah, Yetziran, and Asiya.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're
But
focusing
just-
on
Just the Nefesh alone of Asiya is divided into 5 parts of theme, which are Arkan, Pin,
Right.
Appa, Enima, Zera, Pin, and Nupa.
yeah.
Just that
Yeah,
alone.
that's basically what we're doing. We're going through each parts of, and so like it's same thing now. It's like Nefesh of Ruach, we're basically going through the whole parts of, and then moving on to Ruach of Ruach, and so there's different. It's interesting that you can actually pull a lot out of that for content,
Yeah,
and
you have to unpack it. I
at the
mean,
same time, yeah. At the same time, you have to like limit the information, because there's so much that could be said in each class. So you have to like divide it up and decide what needs to be said where. So it's an interesting.
This is
well,
what
yeah,
Luke
that's
and I
what I
do
was
from
pointing
Sunday
out
to
is
Thursday.
you need to know where you're at,
Yeah.
in your process of rectification,
Yeah.
You can't just, it's not a one size fits all thing. It's more, every person's at a different place in their meditation, in their rectification.
Mhm.
But probably the one thing you can't come away with is that know that the person himself is the spiritual element. That for sure is applicable to everyone. on a general
Yeah.
basis. you
So
know?
like the main thing here, going through each week, we're just touching on certain aspects of each level so that, you know, everyone kind of has a taste of what they need to do in order to make those tikkunim, you know, on their self and to correct their soul in the sense to, you know, reach that level and kind of like help build the kli so that the light can be received, you know. And so that's basically what we're doing. We know that like each week nobody's really attaining these levels, you know, maybe somebody is, but there's no way of knowing for sure, you know, except for that person. And but I mean, I thought it's a really interesting concept of going through each one and just kind of creating awareness, you know, of these concepts within each level, so that I think Tyler asked about this earlier, but basically becoming aware and getting insight from higher levels without, you know, so you're not quite there yet, but you can start to see from afar, basically, you know. But anyway, did anybody have any? I think there's only a few of us left. Did
Couple
anybody have any
diehards, yeah.
questions about the meditation or like any meditation questions in general? Like techniques or anything at all you want to talk about?
Well, if you'd like, I
I
could
think
go
when-
into what I meant or like where I'm coming from as far as the question I was asking,
Mhm.
like my personal experience.
Yeah.
Because COVID triggered something in me,
Mhm.
and I got a diagnosis for clinical depression.
Yeah.
So that's a whole thing.
Mhm.
But going through that depression state and everything, not the clinical depression, but the actual depression state that comes with it,
Yeah.
I could see the deeper I got, the darker it was. I could
Mhm.
see that there was a reason for it. Right?
Yeah.
It felt like I was fading away, but I was getting very depressed, but I was seeing something higher and greater happening around me. So I wasn't
That's
at that
really
state,
interesting.
but I could see that there was some sort of struggle coming
Mhm.
that I could get to, that was going to be
Yeah. So you were sensing that higher level.
right. You know.
Mhm. Yeah. So with clinical depression, even this technique is helpful for that as well. Of course, we can't just get rid of depression, you know, and so we have to
Right.
find ways of coping, and you know, sometimes medication or whatever helps. But so with this technique though, we can learn to rise above it in a sense, like I was talking earlier, and just kind of not be totally immersed in it. You know, we still feel it, it's still there. We really don't want it, but we're able to step back, and there's a space between this place of perception and this depression, you know. So like the more we practice this, the more space it creates. And so at that point, as long as we're not identifying with it fully and not immersed in it fully, it starts losing that momentum. And whenever we direct consciousness towards something, we're infusing it with energy, and it's creating momentum. So like whenever we can actually step back, whether from a depressed state or a clinical depression, we can create that space in between us and the depression itself. And there's a sense of peace there. You can get some kind of relief, you know, and it's really important. It's a really, really great technique. But if you want to do some more research on it, it's
Hey, Luke,
you should.
go
Yeah.
ahead. No, you just mentioned something about say that again, about the space between
Yeah, the space between us and the depression or the
Yeah,
negative emotion.
Yeah,
So
check this out.
Mhm.
Hold on, let me put it on screen. The quote at the top here. You got that?
Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's popped in my head when you there's another
Yeah.
line, and there's a weird line in the V for Vendetta movie
Mhm.
where the person is reading, Evie in the cell's reading a letter from other woman, this mysterious note being passed through the cell. If you've seen the movie, she talks about this space that they can't take away from you. You know, it's like
Right.
really interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, once you learn to access your da'at, your essential self, and this place of awareness from which all things are perceived and felt, in a sense, like you gain this freedom, and any release in that state, when you access the self-awareness, or the essential I, the ani, or the da'at, or whatever you want to call it, from that place you can go through a gate to higher awareness, which is da'at elyon. So in between there you have sechel, which is bina, and nullification, which is hokmah, and to the last stage, which is da'at elyon, where we completely we merge our self-awareness into the higher awareness, and it's like a melting away of all sense of self, all sense of physicality, any kind of identification with any emotion or situation, and it's a complete cleansing experience. It's when you reach that higher level, even just for a moment, because that's really all you need. You just need a moment to kind of penetrate into that level and merge into the higher level and touch that holiness, and then you can bring it back with you as an impression, an energetic impression, which is called a Rishimu in Kabbalistic literature. So this impression, this Rishimu, these are the steps that we came down basically when we were incarnated, and we can rise back up those same steps, which are the Rishimu. So when we access this and say, like, later on, we're in a completely different state, we're in a lower state, if we can actually conjure it in our memory, which is an aspect of da'at, we can go back to that state through our memory and the Rishimu. So like it's a really interesting concept. But yeah, so like the main thing is, like, we went through Chaya last week, where we do go through that level from da'at takton to da'at elyon, the lower self and the higher self, the lower knowledge, higher knowledge, whatever you want to say. But yeah, so it's a really, really interesting concept and very useful. Like we were talking about Sefer Yetzirah earlier, and the Magi of Mesr. He mentioned that we have to reach a state of complete nullification in order to penetrate into that realm, so that the Kedusha, the holy energy, the holy transformational energy, can come down and take us, we can internalize it, and it will transform these other aspects of our soul, the neshama, the ruach, and nefesh of that level. And what is this? Bitul, yeah. Yeah, that's it. And the same thing is like in a group practice like we did last week. So when we direct our consciousness towards each other, we nullify ourselves into the other and the other into us, and it creates this circuit. And this is the same thing. It's like, actually, Kabbalists did this for a long time, basically, as a practice, in order, it's sort of like a simulation, in order to experience the creator on their own. Because first we have to build the intention, and it's very hard to do that without a group, and without study, and without people to push each other to the next level. So if you're on your own, you're not really you can't really access that higher aspect of basically wanting what the other has. I forget what that's called, but it's like a higher level. It's an elevated version of that. And when we come together and we see each other on that elevated level, we want that for ourselves. But the thing is, we have to invert that intention from wanting it for ourselves to wanting it for the other. So I come to, say, the study or the group meditation in order to fix something in me for them. And that has to be the intention. And without that, we're growing in selfishness. And that can be a really dark path. So like the Torah can basically be a poison or it can be a remedy. And it's important to learn the proper intentions and especially learn to study with the proper intentions. Because when we do that, we create a channel for the light to penetrate and transform us. And without the correct intention, we can study forever. We can gain all kinds of knowledge, theoretical knowledge, but we'll never have that experiential knowledge, and we'll never be able to communicate it to anybody else.
Right. As I mentioned, the Label Wolf said, you go from being a jerk to being a knowledgeable jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, no, that's really cool. It's interesting about the concept of, like you were talking about, the nullification, getting to that point. That's that level of Yehidah that we're not really discussing, because that's when you made the connection. And in that Hasidic text by Rabbi Schneerson, it talks about it's equivalent to the level of like martyrdom, or at least being willing to die, not even thinking about it. Like
Self-sacrifice, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look, that's the fifth level at each of our stages we're discussing that we don't really get into because it's just there. But that's, and I hate to bring it up again, but that's how the Matrix stories run. At the end of each movie, Neo dies. And at the beginning of the next movie, he's asleep and wakes up. It's all the movies proceed like that, And so he gets to that level. He starts at a level of awareness of something new. He has questions, and then he has to struggle through fighting or training or something. Then he always meets with the Oracle as the third level. That's the level of Bria. And then he understands his relationship to the other people, how the one is tied to the many. Again, every time in the fourth level after he meets with the Oracle, that takes on a new dimension. And then he ends up giving up his life at the end of each movie. So it's like fascinating to see this process of 5 play out and culminating in the willingness to die. In fact, by the third movie, he knows he's going to. He goes willingly. Right. Trinity goes, I'm not coming back. I know I'm not coming back, And that's just amazing to see this play out. Each movie is one of the levels of the soul. It's exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good text. Again, it's on the essence of Hasidus, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, Hasidic Heritage Series. I can post a picture of it if someone reminds me in the group. And it's available, I think, on Quixote was the name I couldn't remember earlier. The Quixote website has all the Chabad stuff. Or you can just, come over here and borrow one of the books on my shelf.
Another really interesting thing, if you look at coming together like this and doing these groups together with these intentions, there's like, the Baal Salam says there's 2 paths, basically. There's the path of Torah and the path of pain. And whenever we go through the path of Torah, we consciously make those corrections within ourselves. And we look for ways to correct ourselves, consciously and willingly, and yearning for that connection and correction so that we can achieve the connection. And the path of pain would be letting this happen on its own, basically, because it's going to happen. There's going to be a soul correction, and it could come in a really negative way. And it could be enclosed in a really negative form or a situation, a negative thought or a feeling, whatever, but it's going to come and it's going to happen, and there's no way to stop it. So all we can really do is learn to do this consciously, make these corrections consciously. It's like whenever we judge ourselves, so to speak, whenever we correct ourselves to be in alignment with Hashem's will, all the judgments above are canceled. And that's a very important concept, because without true tefillah, without consciously correcting our intentions and the intentions of each of our desires, then we can't really, the change has to come from somewhere. And if we don't do it within ourselves, then it has to come from above. And that's going to hurt in one way or another, basically.
There's
And-
one other aspect to this, which is actually what I think we were going to end up talking about for next week, which is the concept of the Zadik who's there to help you with all this, you know? So now that triggered like what we're talking about next week. I'm like, oh yeah, the Zadik concept is interesting. And I think maybe that's a good one to hit next week a little bit at least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important, especially, you know, before prayer, doing a mitzvot or a study or anything. It's
Right,
important to
like
bond with the
you
tzaddik.
like the invocation you did earlier, exactly. Yeah. Is that what it's called, an invocation? I don't even remember what it's called. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're invoking. That's right. You're invoking, and there's that goes their merit to. Yeah, well, that's the whole concept behind the Zadik, and I got a whole website stuff full of that. So that's I guess I'll go look at that tomorrow and see what we can pull out of that. That's a real interesting concept, and that ties to the Hayel level that we're all here together. You know, only the Zadik is at that highest level. That's one of the neat things I read. I think it was in an intro to Derek Hashem. I don't remember, but it was like how someone can write or speak or conduct let's say a Zoom room even or something like that at a level that everyone gets something out of it. So you can't make like what we're doing. We can't be too technical, get into these texts too deep because I barely understand them. Like I'm going to, try to convey this, and like all these other people that might be new to this, you know what I mean? It's just not appropriate, but it can't be like kindergarten level either, because we all want to grow. So how do you convey information in a way that everybody can get something out of it? That's the trick. And that's what a Zadik can really do well. The Zadik can tell, and sometimes that's a form of a parable even, or something. That's why they're so effective. But that's what I try to do when I think through what we're going to do. Is I look at it and go, okay, does it pass the Napoleon test, the Napoleon's corporal test, where you give the battle plans to the lowest ranking person? If they could understand it, okay, it's not too, Yeah. And then on the other hand, is it challenging so other people will, we have little bunny trails that, we don't get too far off because we don't want to sound snobbish and leave, stuff like that. But anyhow, that's the trick. And the whole concept of the Zadik relates to conveying information in that manner. That is, everyone gets something out of it somehow. It's almost miraculous. Yeah.
Oh yeah. In relation to that, what you just said about so basically I was in a group study the other night, studying a text, and I asked the teacher what would be how do you truly, because people have asked me this and I give them, an answer the best I can, but I wanted to get his opinion. So I said, how can you tell when you make a progression, when you make a soul correction, basically? And he said, whenever you start to see others being elevated. So he didn't say you recognize it within yourself, but it's like the inversion of the inverted aspect of the spiritual world. Whenever you actually achieve a soul correction, you see the good in everyone around you. You see the divinity within everyone around you to a certain degree that you didn't see before, And I thought that was really awesome. I was just like, man, I never thought that way. But that ties in with the whole aspect of nullification, humility,
I tagged you, Tovia, and you, Luke, in a Facebook post. I was sharing a music, a song that touches in on that story I was telling you guys about earlier.
Yeah.
As far as like my depression and seeing where it's coming from, but also back into that concept that you ended up mentioning after that, about that space between you and that emotion. Yeah, so the song's really cool. It's by Avi Kaplan.
Who?
Avi Kaplan.
Okay.
Very, very good.
Nice. Hey, Tyler, send me a PM later.
I sent you a PM earlier with
Oh, okay.
the Family Guy
Oh, that, yeah, no, I meant about, if you want, send me a PM about, some of your recent, situations.
Okay. Adar, I'll tell you, Adar, this recent month, unlike any other year before, has been so joyous. Like it's crazy. It's
Baruch
been good.
Hashem.
You know,
That's great, man.
experiencing a lot of healing.
Baruch Hashem. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, obviously, in the world, but also in the lives of a lot of people, myself included, and especially a lot of
Yeah.
the people I know certain things about. That a lot of people had certain things that were they, had involvement in, which can be relationship, can be a hobby, a job, certain things that are suddenly like recently dissolved, and there's a reason for everything. And I think, in an odd way, I think that some of these things need to just step. I don't know how to put it. It frees you up to really focus on what needs to be focused on right now, because we live in such a critical time. So yeah, a lot of folks have been through some very strange changes in the last several months to a year, and it's it's like more than a pattern. It's like really obvious. There's like all this crazy volatility, and things are fracturing in order to be put back the way they should be. What'd you say earlier? But I get a note here to talk to Luke about his quote about fragmented. Yeah, you said things are not fragmented in the proper state or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one of those famous Matrix images in the first movie where Neo looks in the mirror and it all fragments into pieces and then comes back together, showing him your real state is fragmented. You need to find the totality, the true unity. Yeah. I've used that meme a couple times with that picture. It's a pretty cool picture. Anyhow, so yeah, and like we probably should just have I don't know, I guess we could have a night to just have, it's probably a thing that would be better, I think, for like, we do have a group that women meet and talk, and Nishal be nuts. It's kind of offline at the moment, but I think maybe just have a night for guys to chat. Maybe that wouldn't be a bad thing either, just a thing. I do believe there are issues that men and women should discuss just with men and themselves.
Yeah.
So it gives you an ability to talk more freely. So that's a thought down the road.
I'm sure y'all are all familiar with the Red Tent, right?
The Red Tent book.
Yeah. Did y'all know that there's a movie too, or a TV series, whatever?
I think I caught part of it once.
I got it from the library yesterday, and man,
It's been
very good.
Is it? I can't remember. I remember the Red Tent. I got the book here somewhere. I don't remember what I even thought of it. I don't remember what I thought of it. I honestly don't remember it that well. So it was kind of a fictional account of Jacob and Rachel or something like that. Was it?
It's the story from Dina's perspective.
Oh, Dina's perspective. Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But it really focuses on the red tent, the minstrel tent. So it's always about the women and their own personal like the female talking amongst the female, I guess.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Okay. Right. Now I know why you brought it up. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, us guys can do that too. So.
Yeah, it's definitely important.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get together. This is one, and other ways too, like that. So.
Yeah. I don't know if Diana is gonna redo the Neshel Bina or not, but maybe we can get
at some point she needed a break. It was pretty intense, and
she's
I
going
think.
on.
Well, I think when and we kind of all those groups and rooms, Zoom rooms, we rushed into everything, and it was like I think now that we had a chance to look at some of the things and how we might approach things for round two. So it's doing this meditation stuff first, and then adding Shara Sharim. And because it's all the same, she was teaching the same stuff from different angles, and stuff. So yeah, so if we get a little foundation going, and website and groups and chats and who knows what other videos, then yeah, we'll bring that back. And then when we do like the Omer count or Sukkot, that'll fit in because it's all based on the same ideas. And anything we do is going to be based on the same idea. So we can build a whole like weird, website thing with all these interconnected types of meditations and studies and articles and videos and all that. I think that's the thing to do right now. So I'm going to do that and
Yep.
invite other people to contribute any way they can. There's always work to do.
No rest in this world.
Even just research or even helping market the Zoom. There's all ways to help with these projects, so if anyone's ever interested. Yeah, so I think I need to have a midnight snack because it's midnight here, and my wife is out of town. She's coming back tomorrow, so she's texting me, so I need to talk to her. So I think we'll probably call it a night then. And we will be back, Lord willing, Saturday night, 9:30 again next week. And
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It was good. Laila Tov.
Laila
Amen.
Tov.
Bye,
Talk to you all
everybody.
soon.
Laila
Yeah.
Tova.